We're starting and we're on air. We're live. We're live. Live from beautiful downtown San Rafael Alajuela, the office of Solar Costa Rica. We're bringing a presentation to you on the current situation for the solar program in Costa Rica, which is back on. And we're going to kind of give you an idea of how you can save money by going solar. And I'm going to go over to my presentation because I'm tired of looking at myself, and you're probably tired of looking at me too. So let's go our beginning. We'll get this refined somehow. I'm not sure when. Sometime. Okay, so this talk is about creating an energy strategy for yourself to provide comfort while saving money. And you can actually do that here. You can save money and be more comfortable in a place where it could be kind of hot and muggy or uncomfortable at times. So questions is Solar Costa Rica. And we've been installing solar in Costa Rica since 1995, was the first solar hot water system here. Solar Costa Rica was incorporated as a company in 2004. I'm John Harrington, the president. I have 35 years of contracting experience and 8 years of installing solar in the U.S., Nicaragua, Mexico, and Costa Rica. And right here on my left, you can't see him, Engineer Jose Sandoval Arce. He was the #1 graduate in electrical engineering at UCR in 2015, I believe. Or was that 2014? When did you graduate from UCR? 2014? Yeah, I became engineer. Okay, so I had it wrong. It's 2014. He's doing his thesis on solar energy right now. And kid's real whiz. He can't pass the driver's test, but he does a lot of other shit really well. All right, let's move on to the next slide. Here we go. So in our board of directors, we got some real high-powered solar people in the board of directors. One member of our board, Joe Tanner, he installed solar in Costa Rica back in the 1980s. Then as an astronaut, he fixed the Hubble. If you remember the Hubble when it had a problem and was out of focus. Well, he fixed that, and then he also installed he and another guy, Noriega, installed 2 of the large arrays on the International Space Station. And Ed Furphy, we check in every once in a while with Ed, anytime questions on larger systems, because Ed is the owner of Just Solar, LLC, and comes down to Costa Rica quite often. His company actually installs 13 megawatts of solar per month. Now let's put that into perspective. Costa Rica has 6.5 megawatts. That's half of what his company puts in 1 month. And Alan Harrington is also on the board. He's sort of our environmental guy. He's a research scientist in wildlife studies, actually working on a prairie study right now. Okay, moving on. That's too much. So here's some pictures of our stellar solar installer up on the International Space Station. The large array, the 4 units you see up on top are actually about the length of a football field. So that's pretty amazing stuff. It's rather fragile, and how 2 guys can install a system that's a football field long in space it's an amazing thing. Ed, who is more of a consultant with us right now, along with being a member of the board, does large systems in the United States. This one being an IKEA store, and here's our version of that, San Rafael de Alajuela. is the Asada San Rafael. We did a project where we went into, we actually installed the first solar array in Central America that is operating a municipal water well. And this particular well saving about $2,000 a month in electricity on that. So Costa Rica and ISE are implementing solar programs, and there's a question of how are they doing that? Well, there was a lot of question going into this about how difficult it was going to be to get your permits and so on. And actually, these programs have been well received by the power companies of allowing us to go forward. And what we're going to kind of go over is how the programs are going, how you can save money by going solar, what's the process for doing that, and what's your expected return. How secure is a solar investment? And when do you start? When do I start? You can start tomorrow. Costa Rica actually has this brochure that they have. If you go into their office in Santa Cruz, they have these at every one of the places where you pay your electric bill. And there's a little brochure in there that gives you all the information on how to go with distributed generation, meaning producing power on your home or business and producing it for put back into the grid or use yourself. Actually has been a very proactive company towards moving people into producing electricity themselves. They've realized that it helps the grid, it helps their company, and buy electricity from ISE the same as all the ISE the other ISE customers do. Any kind of electricity they can produce, they're happy to do it. So what is the process? Well, this is a little confusing slide, but the process for installing solar is you can either go off-grid, you can install self-consumption, and that slide moved right along. And here's our slide on ISE of where their electricity comes from. The last slide was actually just a photo of a chunk of the application process for Costa Rica. ISE, so the question of where is the power coming from, and this is kind of the thing that we had on the beginning of the or the teaser for the photo for the Facebook ad is, where does your power come from? Energy that comes from the sun, whether it be wind, wave power, hydroelectric, all of that energy actually comes from the sun. The other option is energy from hell, as we call it, but that is the same thing. It's actually solar power, but it's solar power that's been stored over millions of years. We're using about 1 million years of fossil fuels right now every year. So if you can imagine how much carbon you're putting into the atmosphere if you're burning 1 million years of plants and animals dying off every year, that's quite a So the long term is you want to save money and add value to your investment. Picture on the right is actually one of the installations we did back in Colorado several years ago. It's still working really well. It's 11 kilowatts on one house, and it was one of the first microinverter installations done. I mean, that was when Enphase originally came out. And microinverters have really changed the process of installation, made it much easier, to the point where actually here in Costa Rica, in certain instances, like in Costa Rica, with the help of an engineer or an engineering firm such as ours, you could install your own solar. And we're not talking rocket science necessarily, but certainly the design needs to be up to the experts, and that is required, along with the inspection at the end. But the installation part of it, the biggest risk, I think, is probably falling off a roof. So if you're comfortable with that, it is a potential. The picture on the left is actually a thermal camera photo that we did. This looks to be in a warehouse that we were working in San Jose, and you can kind of tell the difference in the amount of heat in the background with the colder pipes in the foreground. I believe this was an ice factory. And those are other ways to save money, is not produce more electricity, but save what you're using. So what's the present situation here? Well, one, you're paying too much, I think. That would be, I would say, is you're paying too much for electricity. And that doesn't mean that you're not paying what it costs to make the electricity, but making electricity on its own is fairly expensive. Hydroelectric is getting more expensive all the time. And there's an increase in demand, as you'll see here. So because of the electricity in Costa Rica isn't subsidized as it is in the United States, you pay more than double, sometimes triple what you would be paying for that same electricity, let's say in the United States. In Europe, it's still pretty high there too, which is why Europe has penetrated with renewable energy really well. Plus, the people are very progressive in that aspect, and let's hope Costa Rica can move in that direction. So not only are you paying too much for electricity, but you're also wasting electricity. You're wasting energy through leaks and inefficient use, inefficient construction techniques, which are still being used today, that have been used for many years. And I don't care if you're, I talk to architects, there's no insulation in the ceiling, we don't need it. We have tile. Tile's not an insulator. It absorbs heat and then it re-radiates it. Yeah, it may buffer it a little bit, but you're still wasting a lot of electricity with air conditioning. And as you know, if you're in Guanacaste area, that costs you probably more than anything else. You know, I have clients, they say, well, we just charge the extra off to their clients. Well, if you know, you're talking about $10 per room per day, that adds up. And I think that that's something people should look at is, you know, if I could save $10 per room per day, wouldn't that really be a big chunk of money in my pocket? You say, okay, moving on to this slide, you say actually produces, and they charge Guanacaste more for that electricity. So if you're a Nisei customer, well, you're paying a lot. If you're a Guanacaste customer, paying a lot because they're selling it at a regulated, now it's regulated by RSEP. They used to gouge Guanacaste really badly until there was a law put into effect that they couldn't do that anymore. The other thing that you might understand is electricity powering your home is of rather poor quality. The frequency is not real stable here in Costa Rica. The voltage actually goes up and down quite a bit. So it is a little bit tough on your electronics in your home and the motors that operate your appliances. And one thing that solar does when you're actually producing solar, it produces a pure sine wave that's at a it's a cleaner wave than what you're going to be getting at the end of the grid, which everybody in the resort towns are at the end of the grid. So Costa Rica actually experiences an increase in demand of 6% per year. That's quite a bit of an increase if you look at it over, say, a 10-year period. That's 60% more in 10 years than you are using right now. So where is that electricity going to come from? Damming up more rivers? Are we going to be? There's only so many waterfalls in Costa Rica, and believe me, I drive by waterfalls that have been shut off for hydroelectric power. Run-of-river electric power is not really like generators sitting in a river. Those, they should call it drying up of river generation of electricity. Not that it'd be better to burn fossil fuel, but it is a fact that hydroelectric power is not totally green. So when they say that solar, well, it's bad because it covers up all its ground, yeah, maybe, but if you put it on your roof, it doesn't. And you're certainly not drying up rivers doing that. One thing you should understand is Guanacaste has some of the best sun power potential on Earth. It is in the top 5 to 10% of potential places to produce electricity. So you have one of the best places to make electricity, and that is a benefit for you. And what's the other part of the present situation is you probably, here in Costa Rica, or at least a visitor, you're aware of environmental issues and you want to help with that. So Guanacaste fun in the sun. Yeah. This is a slide that was produced in a study in 2014. And it just showed their Guanacaste has 15, for 1,000 watts of installed electricity, you should make 1,524 kilowatt hours per year for every 1,000 watts of electricity you install for solar. Germany, who's been a leader in the world for solar energy, you see what their solar potential is. Their annual kilowatt hours per square meter, this is a different rating system, but it's solar GIS, and their average appears to be in around the 900. They're in around the 900 to 1,000 kilowatt hours per square meter. And they lead the world in electrical production, in renewable energy. When you look in contrast at Costa Rica, you see that especially in Guanacaste area, you're in the, you actually go up over 2,000, so you're double what it is in Germany. And it's certainly any place in Guanacaste is at least, except for the highest peaks, you're at least twice what there is in Germany in power production. So if you look at the difference between what you can make and they can make, and they're doing it, I don't understand why we're still at 6 megawatts of installed capacity here in Costa Rica, but that's where we are. So the development up to now, ISE had a pilot program, and that pilot program was for 10 megawatts of renewable energy that included various other types, hydroelectric, microhydro, wind, solar, and biomass burning. And we actually squeezed out of that about 5.5 to 6, actually, if you add the other 1 kilowatt or 1 megawatt solar farm up in Miravalles, there's 6.5 megawatts total of solar electricity potential here in Costa Rica installed. This isn't on the slide, but let's contrast that with Honduras. Now, of course, Honduras is a bigger country, but they're putting in a half of a gigawatt. That's 500 megawatts of solar this year in Honduras, and we have 5. Okay, so Solar Costa Rica, what do we do? Well, we actually did our own pilot program, Plan Piloto with Guanacaste. We talked to the engineers, and they said, why don't you go ahead and put in a few systems. First they said no, then we said we're only going to be doing self-consumption. We'll never make you buy electricity back from us. And so they said, okay, well then let's do a little pilot program of our own, and it'll be sort of unofficial, but will be able to monitor a few small systems and see how that affects our grid. So we put in some systems in Junquial and Playa Grande in 2013, 2014. These were designed for self-consumption. Now, in November of 2015, self-consumption became a law that you actually can produce your own electricity. You don't need a permit. You don't need a contract with the power company as long as you don't send any electricity back into the grid. So large users or those who want to put in a small system just to reduce their electrical load in the middle of the day can do that without a permit. And then Aerosup, back a couple of months ago, they opened net metering back up with access fees and permit fees, and we'll go over those in a little bit to give you some idea what they are. Guanacaste they opened the program with the lowest fees in the country, although there are some other catches to that, and that the company that you hire does their own inspection. So hopefully you'll hire somebody that has qualifications to do their own installation and their inspections, and put in a system that meets National Electric Code, so you don't have problems with fires or other potential. And ISE actually has the highest fees in Costa Rica for your installation and your access fees to the grid. But ISE does all of the inspections. So that there is some trade-off there. I would say that having installed in the United States, both of those companies, the highest and the lowest, actually charge a little bit less than what you would pay to be getting your permits in the U.S. through your building department and your electrical company and everybody else that sticks their hand in there. One other thing you might look at is financing is available at Bank of Costa Rica. They opened a green energy loan program. Client that Banco Nacional has matched that. It's at least a point lower in interest, and for long-term interest, fixed rate. And they also, the origination fee is half of what it is for a standard loan. Well, you're not buying a boat and throwing money out and having more money to spend every month. You actually are paying less, because instead of paying the power company, you're paying the bank. What could be better than that? If you're a banker, why should you be paying the power company when you can pay the bank instead? So that's why they have a lower interest loan. And here's just a couple of installations. These were these unofficial plan piloto. This one in Playa Grande. Well, this one is actually a little bit larger, and it was with Fuerza Luz. And it is the Asada San Rafael, and it's one solar Costa Rica put in this last year when there wasn't actually a pilot program. And this, with the addition of a variable frequency drive on the motor of the pump, we were able to reduce the demand and electrical use, and then put in enough solar to actually operate this well in the sunnier months, basically on entirely on solar energy. So the costs, and this is in Spanish, in Espanol, because Jose wrote it for me. And well, you know, we are in Costa Rica, so let's look at these. And these are the costs for distributed generation. One, first let's look at ISE, and this is the residential tariffs. You have a 90,000 coloni for the feasibility study. The interconnection fee is 80,000 colonis. You have okay, well that's the post installation inspection, and you have any kind of re-inspection, if you have to have one, is another 80,000 colonis. You pay for the bidirectional meter. They're requiring also a production meter on there, so there's another 25,000 colonis, and you have actually the total then is about 300,000 colonis for the installation of a system where you actually get a permit through ISE. On larger systems, that's really a smaller part, a smaller fee of the total amount. But if you're going to just put a couple panels on there because you don't use very much electricity, you're going to pay more for your permit than you are for the system itself. And additional costs are for second meter and cableado. Oh, okay, additional cables and second meter. So these are extra costs that you probably will pay. Okay, now we're into about the 450,000 colonis for the installation. So, you know, let's just say it's going to cost you pretty much around $1,000 for your permit and inspections. Then you have an access tariff. If you do, this is the part that can be confusing. You have a meter that can go forwards and backwards. That's a bidirectional meter. That's what they're going to install for you when you put solar on. So when you produce more electricity in the middle of the day than you're using, at that time your meter goes backwards. For each kilowatt hour that meter goes backwards, they charge you 28 colones. But that does remove 1 kilowatt hour that you would actually use later, say at night, and that 1 kilowatt hour costs you 142,000 colones. So it costs you 28,000 colones to run your meter backwards, but when you do, you're erasing 142,000 colones. So there's a net difference of around 110,000 colones, more or less, that when you run the meter backwards, you're saving 110,000 colones. Now, if you're using your air conditioner in the middle of the day and you're producing electricity, that just slows your meter down. You're not taking the electricity from the grid, you're taking it from your solar panel. And so that kilowatt hour that you reduce is actually worth the whole 140,000 colones. So if that can, no, it's not 140,000 colones. Woo, that's a big kilowatt hour. Okay, it's 140 colones instead. So you get the whole 142 colones for every one that you use while you're, okay, so then let's move on to the, you say commercial. These are higher rates. Well, now we got to go backwards. We can't. So I am not going back to that. Commercial is more expensive. Let's just put it that way. It's going to cost you a couple $1,000s to hook up a commercial system. If you're looking at it in dollars and cents, and if we do a study for you, we'll put it in all of those numbers so that you have that information. Costa, on the other hand, their study costs 11 mil. Interconnection is 49 mil. Their inspection at the end is 11 mil, and their meters are 25 and 25. So their total cost is 121. Then their additional costs are potentially, you have a meter base to stick that second meter in, and the cables and so on. So it's about 150. In the 100, you're going to be in the 280,000 colonie range. 280,000 colones, yeah. So let's say $550 for the installation. So it's about half what it is for EC. The difference here is Costa, when they do an inspection, they stop at the meter. They do not go onto the property and inspect the installation and see how well it's been done, or that it meets code, or it's not going to create a fire. They said that's not our responsibility. That's up to the engineer that did the drawing. That has to be drawn and stamped. So there is some expense there, and we can do that actually for other companies or other clients that want to install their own. We can do the drawings and we can do the inspections. We can kind of guide you along on how to do this up to code. So if you want to save money that way. And then the access tariff for Costa is 28 colones instead of, I'm sorry, 21 colones instead of 20. So they actually charge a little bit less to spin the meter backwards. And again, if you don't spin the meter backwards and you use that electricity at the same time that you're producing it, you are erasing the entire amount that you would normally pay Costa for that kilowatt hour. So let's look at an example. Mango Hotel. Here's a return on investment. This is commercial, and this is the actual monthly payment for 5,000 kilowatt hours a month, and that's around $1,600 a month for Mango Hotel, and they're over near the airport here, Nalajuela. So if we were to put in a 19 kW system, that produces half the electricity for that hotel. We don't pay an access fee because they're actually using that during the time. Jose, is this 50%? Is that with a permit or without? Is that only self-consumption, or is that?
That is the 50% the production.
That's 50% of the consumption, but that's with it. You're still getting a permit and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, all right. So then we're just assuming.
Commercial is close to $1,000. The first part plus 150,000 colones.
Yeah, I got it.
I send you the second.
Okay.
Second document with those details.
Anyway, so this graph is actually how much you would save over time, and where you would be in relation to the cost of the system. Obviously, the first year you're below because you just paid for it. You didn't pay it back yet. By year 2, you didn't pay it back. By year 3, year 4, you did pay it back. Now you're saving money by year 4 with this model. This is also looking at a inflation rate of the electricity, which is the average inflation rate, which is what, 9% or 10%? Inflation and the cost of the electricity.
The change, it's close to 11%.
It's 11% for commercial.
Yeah.
Okay, what these say. Yeah. Okay, so we're looking at you've been paying about 11% more each year. So we use that 11% as an average and increase the cost of electricity each year. That's why at the end of 25 years, you are ahead by about $450,000 over not doing anything. So you could do nothing. Instead of putting in this 19 kW system, and I am just assuming 19 kW is going to run you around $50,000 more or less, and so you can finance that. Your payback period would be a little bit further out if it was financed, but it still is going to be way below 10 years, and that's with no money down. You're going to save up around $450,000. Okay, so let's look at the next system. Is it that you're going to produce 100% of the electricity, so 50% of the electricity's. Okay, so 50% of what you produce is actually in the middle of the day. You're going to spin the meter backwards, so you're paying that access fee. You're paying that 28 colones with ISE to spin the meter backwards, but you're still saving the 140, right? So when you're paying that access fee with half of your electricity and the other half is just running your air conditioner in the middle of the day, your payback moves out to, well, it's less than 5 years. That must be a typo. I made a mistake. It's less than 5 years. And that's with a commercial rate on a 37 kW system. Now you're getting up into the, well, not $100,000, but certainly, enough that unless you have plenty of capital, you might be wanting to invest into that with a bank loan. But you are still going to be $400,000 ahead, actually a little more, by year 25. If you're putting in a bigger system, your payback period extends out a little further, but you're producing 100% of your electricity. You're not paying for that electricity at the same time that you're also saving money on the electricity that the solar array is making. I'm going to go back over to Marias International Homeschool, which is in Samara. This is a data logger that we installed with a small array that we have there. This system is we're doing a test on what east-west azimuth or east-west direction of your panels does to the power curve, so that we're looking at self-consumption. Marias this is actually a self-consumption system. They don't have a huge bill. It's around $400 a month. And they use it all in the middle of the day. So this day was the 13th last month. It was actually a pretty sunny day until you get to the afternoon, and then you can see that the clouds came in, and that's why there's jagged end on the downhill side of the bell curve, which you normally get every day. But you can see that day there's 4 panels there. They produced 5.36 kilowatt hours. And just looking at this at 10 o'clock in the morning as one of the points, it samples every 5 minutes, and there the power is 714 kilowatt or 714 watts at 10 a.m. And then you can, I mean, with the same program in your dashboard, you can look this up on your iPhone anywhere in the world. You could do you can do it off of a computer. You can do it at your house. You can do it up in Canada. You still look at your place down in Marias, or I mean in Samana, Nosada, or wherever, and see what the weather's like, essentially, because the graphs will tell you whether it's been cloudy, rainy, or sunny all day. And this is a weekly power production. This is a monthly power production. And you can then even go down to, as the installer, this is my portal rather than the other operators. The installer can go down to actually the module itself to see how much electricity it's making in a day. Right here it shows 130, 1.39, 1.37, 1.29, 1.31. The two with the larger numbers are probably facing east, and the two with the smaller numbers are facing west, because that's when the clouds come over. That's the 13th. So yeah, it was cloudier in the afternoon. So this number 2661 is the one that is facing west. So what are your potential alternatives? Keep paying the power company. That's right. Rent your power. They love it. Buy a solar PV system for cash and stop paying for electricity altogether. You know, instead of going out and buying a boat, maybe buy your own electricity. There's an idea. Buy a solar array with credit and still pay less than you're paying now. If you're paying less, I mean, if you're paying the power company right now, even with the loans as high as they are in Costa Rica, which is about BCR's loan for the solar array is about 8.5% a year, with a 2.5% origination fee, you can still install a system and say over the next 10 years, you're going to pay less than you're paying the power company to produce that electricity that the power company was normally selling you, that you're making yourself. And at the end of 10 years, you still have 15 years of power production warranty, not just power production, but a warranty from the solar panel manufacturer that you're going to be making power for the next 15 years. And guess what? That's free. Well, keep paying the power company, because 10 years from now, you know, I think what they're going to do is they're going to say, you're such a good customer, we're just going to give you the electricity for free for the next 15 years, right? Yeah, they don't work that way. So, okay, well, if you read ahead, you can see that the other opportunities you have is to move into a yurt with no electricity. Dude, get some dreadlocks, hang out, or sell your home here and move to Canada, because Canada is going to be rocking as the climate change happens, and you know they're trying to get that tar sands out of there so it warms up and it ain't staying cold up there. I think that's my theory, and they don't have to come to Costa Rica because their dollar's not doing so good. They don't like to come down here as much. Sorry, Canadians, I was just laughing. Okay, so this is, you know, there's paying the power company money out the window. It never comes back. It's not an investment. It's a rental. You can own your power. You can rent your power, just like owning a house or a car. Energy efficiency. Well, there's ways to be efficient with energy. You know, get out of the sun. As you know, the sun here is extremely intense, and if you ever work on roofs as I do, you'll find that in Fahrenheit, the roof temperature gets up to, that tile gets up to around 160 to 170 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm thinking, I did look at it at centigrade. It was 58 degrees when one of the times that I used my thermal camera on it. So the other way with energy efficiency is to trim the amount of waste you have. How much does your air leak out your windows? You're using jalousie windows still, single pane jalousie windows. Do you have air moving through your ceiling with no insulation? Did your architect tell you that tile is actually an insulator? Because he's not right. And are you using concrete walls with no insulation down where it only gets down to like 80 or 90 at night, and you're still trying to expel heat, and your walls are re-radiating everything they stored? So one idea is to get an energy audit, and we offer energy audits. We do blower door tests and infrared thermal camera testing, but those don't do anything unless you do the recommended changes. So this is our thermal camera. This is actually inside a freezer for an ice company. So if you actually notice that the wall there is 19 degrees centigrade when it should be below zero. But it's not, because, well, this place has been in operation for 30 years and they hadn't fixed it. So we did a retrofit on it, and it's actually working much better. And this next slide is actually that same wall. It's rather interesting that you can see, if you look up at the top right above that board, all of the dirt that's accumulated on the ceiling laminate. That's because of air movement going in and out. So that'd be the other reason why it was that warm up there on that corner, because that's the same, essentially that same corner is warm because there were air leaks. There was also no insulation in the ceiling, and the water dripped down all the time from condensation. We put in 6 inches of foam and sealed that all up and sealed all the cracks, and now the ice actually freezes much faster, and the owner is very, very happy about that. And it's the same with an air conditioner in a house. Here's some of your tile roof. 54 degrees centigrade. Now, if it's in an attic and you have space in between her, how much that heat is actually coming in and actually, I mean, you feel it on your head. You put your air conditioner on, you got to run it colder because you get this radiant heat coming down on your head. Sorry that slide sideways. So we put in a blower door, and you can put it into any door. You can put it in a commercial building, a residential. You can look at your variations in actually pascals of pressure, and you look at the vertical stacking in a house. You look at the leaks, where all the leaks come through, and we can do blower door directed air sealing. So if you have leaks in your house, we turn on the blower door, and we put in the thermal camera, and then you can see where all of the air is coming through and seal it up. This door actually was in that freezer, and we did a positive pressure test on that freezer. So we had chased around every leak that we could physically find and see until we put the blower door in there and fired it up. We actually found a 6-inch hole in the wall that was covered up with the paneling. As Jose said, when we were sitting on top of that room with the door blowing, oh, it's rather refreshing. And I said, well, that's not a good sign, because all that cold air is coming out, and they're just wasting money with that. So recommendations: take the first step. Yeah, it's always change one thing. And that's what a friend of mine said, everything. Well, you got to start with taking the first step. Find out one, what can you do? What's the first step? Maybe walk instead of drive more. Use a bicycle. All of those things help. Look at the potential of doing solar. If you have that opportunity, if you have either equity or money, just money laying around, A lot of you guys got a lot of money lying around. You can fill out the questionnaire. There's a link to that on our website. There's also a link, I believe, on Facebook. And we send out advertisements quite often on Facebook to fill out this questionnaire. It is a little bit of a pain in the information that we have to have for us to give you a reasonably accurate price and return on investment for putting solar on your house. Then look at your energy use and trim the waste. Tim could use a little trim of the waste. You know, a tan takes 10 pounds off, but a tan will take off 10 pounds, but it doesn't necessarily mean that wasting it for you with your energy issues. Speaking of energy issues, I got one right now. My computer's not plugged, or something to that effect. Oh yeah. I'm plugging computers. Whew, without electricity. Look at your energy. Install a quality solar array. Signs about now anyone can, with a solar air conditioner, look at the price of those things. You know, a DC inverter type air conditioner is actually something that will save you money, but you don't need to attach it directly to a solar plant. It's better to put in solar that actually feeds your entire house instead of limiting it to an air conditioner. Back when there wasn't anything allowed with net metering, that might have been okay. But just like the horse and buggy, that idea is obsolete now. So install a quality solar array by a quality company, and it will give you decades of free power, and not necessarily something cheap and simple, because we know those don't always end up as the best idea. Your energy is your choice. You know, and I like this Rosie the Riveter. We can do it. This actually, I mean, if you look at a do-it-yourself type thing, Olga here was she's actually German, and she was here traveling and working in the restaurant industry or whatever. And I said, oh, hey, why don't you come up and help me on the roof? Because I needed a little help to pull wire. So she volunteered on this project, homeschool, international homeschool. And she had a great time doing it. So you can look us up at solarcostarica.com. We're right now changing our website over to a different server, so there's a little bit of a glitch there. It's not all the web page isn't all back up, but we're also on Facebook, and it's solar.rica. And thanks for your time. 318-406, good. 45 minutes, only half.